Hello everyone. Today we're together with David Basulto. He's a fantastic person, an architect, also founder and editor, Chief of ArchDaily. Everybody knows ArchDaily. David Basulto founded with his friends and his team the couple of years ago that organization. It's not only the website, also he does many things in lecture and education, and also he's interested in about architecture, not only the making architecture, the studying architecture, understanding architecture, and he keeps, and also his team, our architecture field is a fantastic mirror. And David Basulto is a graduate architect from Pontificia Universidad, Católica de Chile, 2006, and founder and editor, Chief of ArchDaily, and its global sites in different languages, not only the English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Chinese, and would be the Turkish. And ArchDaily's mission is to improve the quality of life of the 3 billion people who live in cities in the next 40 years by providing inspiration, knowledge, and tools to the architects who face this challenge. He has served as a jury for several awards and prizes and design competition in Latin America, North America, and Europe and Asia. He is everywhere. Every day, every minute, he is with us, and he is everywhere. If you call him, if you find him, if you ask him, he answers. He always ready to talk about anything what you want. That's because his organization about all of them. ArchDaily is based in Santiago, Chile, with offices and operations in Beijing, Mexico City, Sao Paulo, Bogotá, and Lima, and now Istanbul.
We're connected to Istanbul.
Yeah. David has lectured at Harvard, and also from Sao Paulo, Escola de Cidade, and also from Beijing, Tsinghua University, and Universidad Católica Santiago, and Center for Architecture in New York, and many spaces. What I explained to you, that he's everywhere. And also he got he awarded many awards, and you'll see, you understand that if you explain and tell us some architecture ideas and what's going on in the next generation, I think it's not enough, but people understand who is the David Basulto. How are you?
Thank you, Gokhan, for the invitation, for connecting from Santiago to Istanbul, for your very thorough description of all these things, but at the end is just doing our daily, our passion, that even if it's starting in Chile, today is global. Until very recently, we were 65 people working from all these corners of the world that you described. But now this is part of the new era, the new story, where 180 people as we join Architonic in Switzerland, part of this constant development that we're doing to help architects, a profession that today is facing the biggest challenge that we have as humanity, that it is cities. And today, more than ever, we are needed. In these crazy days, I think we're all becoming very aware of the importance of where we are living, how we are living, how not only as just individuals or families under a roof, but also as citizens in urban agglomerations.
Yeah, we discussed before starting the conversation. You prepared some photos for sharing. If you don't mind, we would like to share during your explanation to our audience. We can start maybe the step by step, the old photos explain your approaching to the architecture side.
Yes, because when you invite me to have this conversation, I said, what is the best that I could share with you on this opportunity to address people on a live way? And it is to share what we have been seeing during the last months in general, because we are clear that now in this crazy pandemics, social change, it is obvious that the world will radically evolve. But this change has been coming from before. It's just that now it's accelerating. So for us, it has been the question of how we will do what we're doing in a different world, what we're doing as architects, as an organization. And I think that this is happening on every profession and field. And in this particular moment, we had the chance to start seeing this months ago, because we have an office in Beijing, and our China team was telling us back in January, there is something going on. We are going through this early pandemic. There is this very intense flu. We don't know what will happen. And we started to see how this unfold from east to west. Our offices and team in Europe and here in America, it has been like a wave, which also give us I think, a positive aspect, because we see that eventually this will pass. Now in China, things are getting slowly back on track. We're seeing in Europe some of these changes, while in America, this is still reaching its peak. But at least we know how it will somehow evolve. But also we are grateful because from our global overview, we understand that these things are not new. Maybe these kind of images coming from the East that have always been like very, they create curiosity among us. Why do they react in this way? How in their day-to-day they have embodied to this culture, these kind of practices. Now we understand. And our view of the world, how we see each other on the streets, is going to evolve, is going to change. And this change, of course, is obvious when today we see many people having to jump online, from delivery, about everything, from conducting business, from how do we relate. It is very obvious, but it's only accelerating something that was coming from before. And today we even see that all our global gatherings as architects, biennales, conferences, all of these kind of things are just getting postponed. And these are the things that now we're seeing, and in a very obvious way. But again, this is not an emergency. This is just a necessary change. Now it is accelerating. How do we live it inside our daily? Of course, jumping into online for us, it is easy. We have always been an organization. When you share the global distribution that we have, it is an organization not only in the places where we have offices. Today, there are many ArchDailiers working from Lebanon, in Berlin, in Dublin, across the US, and Americas, Asia. And we start to become aware of also the responsibility that we have when we see things such as our web traffic. It is spiking now. Much more people are relying on ArchDaily because their work needs to be done online. That is a responsibility. But if you can move to the slide number 9, please. This is the image that we were closely living a few months ago. This is Santiago. This is Chile. This is a social movement that starts demanding change in politics, change in economic distribution, change in education, change about the roles in society. But this image, if you abstract yourself, it has been all over the world. Every Latin American country, in Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia, the world demands change. We're lucky that internally as an organization, in order to grow, think that our daily start in 2006, and today we're dozens of people, and soon 100, we require that their dailies have this mindset, because in this changing world, we need to understand diversity, we need to understand that the only constant will be change. The things that we started doing 10 years ago are very different, and we need to evolve. And our world is not binary. It's not longer right or left, male or female. It is all the shades of gray in between. And for this, we need to be prepared. So I'm very happy that our team is very diverse, it's very open, and it's very connected with the world. A world that we look at it from our different corners. And we're very happy that we have always been in this periphery. We start in Chile, that is in the end of the world, where things were like spectators. We need to move because the networks are not there. We need to go to Europe, we need to go to the US, we need to go to Turkey to understand what young architects are doing, who is innovating, how we can connect them to the rest of the world. And that is what has driven their dailies. But going back into the world today, we move between these two images, if you can advance with the slides, please, of a world that is getting into a standstill, but at the same time, it is a world that cannot stop. There is many people who in a way disconnect from these kind of things. You can say, go home, stay in quarantine. But for many people in precarious conditions, this is just not possible. How are we going to help them? And looking at this global scenario is also where we think, why is our daily relevant? Why? When all these kind of things are happening, such architecture platform online could be of interest. It is because all these things happen on the city. Now even we look at the countryside, but in contrast with the city. Even the suburbia starts to become a new subject of preoccupation. To live in dense cities is the most sustainable in terms of transportation, of our footprint. But now, for sure that for many people, going back to suburbia will be interesting, where you will have more distance from people. It is enabled by telework, by working online. Maybe you can be off the grid, self-sustainable. And all these preoccupations that we thought that were in a way fading away, just become more important in contrast of the city. So that is when we question ourselves how we will do what we're doing in this different world. Going very into the detail, for architecture, there will be many changes in relation to how we design things. I think that hygiene will become, as it happened in the past centuries in relation to the city, it will dominate how the city is conceived today, and even to our small spaces where we're confined today. And we're asking ourselves, how can I maintain this in a proper way? How this could be much more cleaner? I think that for the hospitality industry, which is one of the most affected, a radical change will come. It is happening in relation to delivery, to how do you deal with people, and probably this minimal aesthetics, this contemporary aesthetics will answer to a need, to the need to have surfaces that can stay clean, that are easier to maintain, where it is easier to maintain our distance. And probably there will be a lot of transfer from the world of healthcare design into our daily spaces. About public spaces, we're seeing it. It is very easy to understand that they are not going to be the same. And even our private public spaces, from the mall to the airport, everything will change. But again, this change is accelerating because of this pandemic, because it was coming from before. I think that in general, global conferences, all these business conferences in big markets that move a lot of people, airplanes, hotels, presentations, fairs, we know that it could have been much more efficient to do them online, but they have such a big industry that it didn't make sense. It could happen later. There was no rush. But now it has to happen. And in this sense, the work of the architect, of course, shift to digital. Almost all of the workflow inside your office must be digital, producing the drawings, the relation with the people on site. But the important change is that it must be online. If you can advance a few more slides where I have this graph, this table. 2 more, please. This is the state of the digitalization of industries, a report produced by McKinsey, which shows how digitalized are the different industries. On the top, the most digitalized ones, information, media, professional services, finance, retail, industries that, yes, we know, they were completely changed because of digitalization. They are integrated. They are much more accessible to anybody. They have very low margins. All the advantages of digitalization and even globalization. But on the other spectrum, at the bottom, you have construction. Construction, which embodies architecture. We are a very offline industry still. Even if many parts of our work are done in BIM, we relate to the constructors via email. We talk with our associates in the construction site via WhatsApp. We're still very offline because our processes are not integrated. They rely on people moving things from one side to the other, that the supply chain of construction is highly inefficient. You know that you have many, many intermediaries in between. But this is not a pessimist scenario. It's actually very optimistic because there is everything to be done. And the world is seeing it. Where is the next wave of development? In construction. Where digitalization will enter strongly? In construction. Where the big consultant firms are saying things like this: the construction site of 2050 will be human-free. And I see this phrase and I get like, how will this happen? Today we go to a construction site and it's a vibrant place of humans, people working, generating employment. Now that we are on the verge of the world's largest recession, we know that construction will be the key because it generates many employments. It distributes wealth very fast. But when we see this kind of statements, is it a dystopia or a utopia? It's very hard to understand, especially in the developing world where I move. But it is actually something that will end up happening. As we digitalize, as we integrate, very soon we're going to be relying much more on machines, of course, aided by humans, aided by people. And this kind of dystopias, like these images of people like remote controlling construction, is not from the future anymore. If you can advance 2 slides, all these promises of artificial intelligence, it is happening already. Already construction sites are being supervised by cameras, which through machine learning are understanding what is happening. How fast is the slab being poured? How fast is the concrete moving? Is it an effective concrete? How many workers are there? Are they in risk? And this kind of technology can easily scale. It's much faster than what we're used to. Imagine that these technologies to supervise concrete 3 months ago have been quickly adapted to see if workers are keeping safe distance, if workers are using their masks. And this is a change that just happened in weeks because it is code. It is very different from the bits from the atoms that we're used to deal. And this is evolving and evolving fast. If you can advance, also, again, 2 slides, to print architecture. It is a contemporary discussion. And we see these little experiments, we see these proof of concepts, we print small furniture, maybe small spaces, but houses are being printed in Mexico and in the US in assembly lines. And when you you perfect the technology for one, you can do 1,000 and it is the same. It's just to scale to the side. It's to have super efficient assembly lines. What the modern architects were discussing about in the last century, the house as a machine. How can we embrace the machine to create architecture? And the aesthetics of modernism that came from that. To have robots building bridges in an autonomous way is a proof of concept. But again, once this technology perfects, it will scale in an exponential way. And this is the kind of things that I think that in architecture we're witnessing from the distance. It is one experiment, but we really need to start to embrace this change. In the same way that the logics of distribution, assignment of work, or networks radically eliminated the work of the bank cashier, of the retail salesperson, even put into the big question of what will happen with work such as taxi drivers when big companies like Uber come and disrupt their industry. We really need to be, as architects, to try to stay one step ahead, because the positive thing about all of this also is not that it will make our life easier as architects, as builders, but if you advance 2 slides, please, just being online, being integrated, being available, enables for others to enter. Now, probably, Gokhan, you must hear many of your clients come with a very clear idea of what they want. They want to be part of the process. Maybe they could even arrive with a 3D model that they did themselves. They come with links about things that they are interested. They want to enter into the supply chain of the materials, because now this can happen. These technologies start to become much more easier. Think that 10 years ago, you needed an expert, a computer expert, just to manage how you use CAD, how you did renders. Today, all these things, my younger brothers can do them on an iPad, because the technology is enabling much more people to use this. And as the biggest challenge for the world is how do we live in cities? How do we conceive our spaces? It is not a preoccupation of architects anymore, not even politicians. It is a preoccupation about everybody. Now, even in these moments of quarantine, we question who did this space, why it is like this, why it doesn't have sunlight, why it is so small, how can I live here? And this general sentiment, it is there. And sometimes we architects were disconnected. But I invite you to, if you put the next slide, when you go today to Netflix, you will see that the theme of living, how do we live? Spectacular houses, tiny living, ordering my room, all these kind of things are there and are preoccupations. And Netflix is a data company. It is because they are understanding the needs or the interests of general society through this data. And that is leading that the old concept of the prefabrication in architecture, the prefab house, is highly relevant. And now we're seeing that houses are becoming products. And when they are products, they start to connect with all the logistics that we're seeing on retail. You are going to choose your architect because he's the one with the best ratings, the one with the most clients, because it is a validated one. Now architects are going to be able to deliver their service to different countries. We know that architecture has been hyper-local, and with all the questioning between globalization, the international style, regionalism, it will be like a train crashing into architecture because of this, especially as house starts to become a product or even a service. So with this, what I want to bring just to a general message and question, if you advance 2 slides, please, it is that we need to be forefront, because It's not that somebody, I hope, will come and say, hey, architects, this is the new scenario. And I'm very happy to see much more architects entering into this field, driven in a way by the lack of work, by recessions, by crises. Architects, we have design thinking, and we can apply it to digital products. And I'm very happy to see movements such as Architecti, where architects are entering into big technology companies or creating startups that do not rely to the architecture supply chain only, but also to other needs of the world that we can serve from our mindset of design thinking, abstraction, problem solving. So this change, we can be an active part. And this acceleration through the pandemics can, I think, enable much more people to think it in a different way, especially when we see the slide in the next slide, which shows how much investment is happening today into what we call build tech. It's growing exponentially. And we architects could be an active part of this change. But what we need to do, please, the next slide, and this is the last one, we need to understand it. We need to listen. We need to get out of our bubble. It is very important that we recognize this change and that we are part of it.
Sorry.
No.
And under the circumstances, you offer, suggest, recommend architects have to listen to people, and also construction companies have to listen to our architecture field. Also, actually ArchDaily does that. You listen to people from everywhere, and especially sometimes you organize some specific files, specific subjects, understanding the architecture field. And today you explain to us the relationship with architects and the construction site. But I think the last 100 years, that connection between the architects and the construction companies, they didn't listen to each other. Maybe you realize always the construction company close to the governments, always they follow the government's politics, and they don't listen to architects, and then totally we ruin the word. If you want to say anything about that, the construction company, first of all, always they follow the government politics, and then architects in architecture school and a theoretician, there's other historian and other architects who thinks about the architecture, always warn them about that. But I think the next generation architects would be more involve construction site more than 100 years, especially 20th century. 21st century, digital fabrication and other printing architecture solutions, I think, encourage the architects to be involved like a 19th century, like a 18th century, like a Renaissance time, period of a different century. The architects would be more interested in, also involved in construction part.
Yeah, I like how you pose it because we can see this evolution. I read a text by Rafael Moneo, which was very eye-opening in this aspect because he says that at the beginning, we needed shelter, and somebody in our tribe took that role. He put a roof on our heads, and as we started to advance as society, cities, grow, this specialist became the architect, and he was the big orchestrator doing everything. But as society continued to advance, it constantly required more specialization. So then you had the separation with the architect and the constructor, the engineer, the builder, and the architect started to become the one who will draw, who will take ideas into a drawing for others to build. And in this specialization, it started to lose the direction because it was relegated to this aspect of the drawing. And eventually, we're looking into the current state of things, and we're seeing that the power of the architect could be much more of this integrator. And now, I will say that in the world of today, we have that opportunity because we see it in different industries. The specialization now is becoming obsolete, and you can integrate much faster because of the availability of technology, because many of these specializations are no longer needed. So in this new scenario, how we can combine this? Because of course, as you described, the architect from the Renaissance, how did it evolve until we are here? And it's very good to always look at it from the distance of history. I think that now we should reevaluate. I don't say that the architect must go again into the concentrator of everything, because the city requires a multidisciplinary approach, but many tasks, especially in relation to the construction, I think that can be now integrated. Now the construction site won't be so distant from the architecture office as it used to be.
David, we have some questions for you, and we would like to get some questions because good thing to interactive. At nowadays, architecture media has been spread rapidly in Turkey like a virus. Especially architectural offices and construction material companies started to make live conversations on their social media accounts. This situation is looking quite similar with other countries. Do you think with spread usage of media can create a new media age? And what are the effects of the new media on architecture now and at the future?
Very good question, because this is what we're doing today with you, Gokhan. Now you are media, a foundation that seeks to, in a way, spread architecture. You are now becoming media because you are adapting these channels that allow you very easily to have this broadcast, to connect to many people. And of course that this will change media. And we understand it from this radical way. Almost a year and a half ago, we said internally, we're not media. ArchDaily is not a magazine, it's not a media per se, and we should stop following the media way. And that led us to do internal radical changes, and that is why I said that the ArchDailiers need to be open to change, because imagine I am editor, like a very media position, and internally we say, okay, team, now we're not a magazine or a media anymore. What does it mean? And we started to focus much more into our platform and tool aspects. Of course, that again, things are not binary. It's not we're media or not media, we're tool, not tool. It is in between. If you ask me, ArchDaily is ArchDaily. And it's hard to, I think it's hard to explain it when I put it in that way, but understand that media is changing. Media, everybody could be a media today. The free tools that enable ArchDaily to exist, we started with a blogging platform, are the same ones that are available for so many creative people. And as the question described, our industry is taking a more active role on this, and that is why the conversations are not concentrated anymore. It's not that you only have to go to ArchDaily to watch an interview with an architect or live stream. This is happening in a distributed way, in the spirit of the world. That is how it should be. We need to be, like as I said, very receptive. More than just listening is to be receptive. How the things are changing, how they are evolving. It is in the same way when we saw and we see new networks appear. When Snapchat appears, when TikTok appears, we say, are architects going to be exchanging knowledge here? Yes or no? Should ArchDaily do something here? It was like when our Instagram started. I remember with my partner, with David Basulto, we were in the Vitra campus. And looking into Facebook, all these square photos, this new network, we said, hey, we're in the place where there is the iconic architecture. Maybe we should start our Instagram account, because architects are going to exchange ideas in a visual way. And Instagram, fast forward, it is what we're seeing today, a place that for us, for creative people, it is where we're sharing knowledge, not only sharing the building that we finish, but sharing how we think, how we inspire, what we are looking. So, and is that media or not? I think that Instagram is one of the most important tools today for architects.
Approximately 3 million people follows your account on Instagram, and also your newsletter every day is 2 times approximately. How many followers is the website? You have any number?
Well, our website platform is used by more than 650,000 people every day. We have these millions of followers on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and in our different accounts, ArchDaily Mexico, ArchDaily Brazil. But at the end, more than just having all these millions of followers, is to understand where is the people today, which is the public square.
Yeah, I think not the only architects, also the non-architects, not only designers, also non-designers, and then ordinary people, different kind of the people follows your accounts, not only the Instagram, and so it's an amazing job. We really appreciate what you do. And the next questions we'll see. Interesting speech indeed. Do you think in the end all these interactive platforms will act together around one big data? Big data. You have a big data
question. Yeah, we have actually it is part of this tool focus, because we understood that as we have this big library, the interactions that people are having with the data can tell us what they are thinking. If people are looking into, for example, about bamboo. Bamboo for us today is one of the most important materials. And I think that in the past, people used to think about bamboo as something very precarious, something only for scaffoldings in Southeast Asia. But it's a very sustainable material that in the last years, many people have advocated for it, because, well, it is sustainable, but you need to do from mechanical testing, from construction guidelines, you need to understand it. And this understanding is growing in the last years. And we saw this through data, much more people looking for bamboo, looking into projects about bamboo. We were like, why? Because it was counter logic in what we were seeing with the rapid urban developments, concrete, steel. But through data, we understood that there was a big interest about bamboo. And that led us to start we call it ArchDaily Insights. It's how we're understanding this. And of course, that in the context of today, when we're seeing that data is dominating our lives, we also try to be critical. Because through data, it's very hard to see creativity. Maybe data can tell you that millennial pink is the most trendy color for doing hotel interiors or restaurant interiors. And it's very difficult that data, even learning from this, could tell you which could be the next color, which could be a next trend, because it really requires the divergent thinking of humans. Creative people I think we rely on seeing different things, on being exposed to the unknown. That fuels our creativity. That is what we do at Our Daily. We present you with a stream of new things from all over the world. It doesn't have any order or any hierarchy at the beginning in our stream. We just show you every hour something new because we want to help that divergent thinking. We want to feed it. We expose you to the unknown, to how people are doing things in different contexts, in a very different way, and that generates creativity. And we have to find the balance about data, about trying to extract trends, learnings, but always thinking that humans do this creation. And I think we need to be very responsible because we are seeing the dangers of data that are very similar to globalization. They tend to make everything look much more the same.
We have a next question, and also we don't have it. Okay. We got the many questions, not on the YouTube, also the WhatsApp and also the Instagram. The many questions really important. Which architecture, typology, or style interested in David is a personal question.
What
because you
interests
explain,
me?
you explained the many things, but the architects, the always ask this kind of, especially young architects, ask, okay, you explain everything, but what is your architecture typology? It's not my question. It's our audience questions. Sorry about that, but they ask that.
For me, in terms of typology, the most interesting has to do with the sphere of the public, in regards to public spaces and everything that we would say generates identity. It is museums, it is archives, it is cultural centers. It is this kind of architecture because it needs to embody something and to represent the aspirations of people. Right? That is always the most interesting to me, and it is also the typology that enables architects to bring this kind of abstraction. So it's always very expressive. I really like the spirit of institutions of Louis Kahn, and how that is represented in today's buildings with identity. And by seeing this, I connected not only with what interests to me in terms of typology, but in terms of like a new regionalism. The world has been moving in this pendulum of, and in the same is in modernism, international style or regionalism. Today, we went very quickly between the 90s and early 2000s into the globalization. The same shiny skyscraper in the booming capitals of the world under very different contexts. The same skyscraper that we have here in Santiago, in Hong Kong, in Saigon, in San Francisco. But the counterpart of this is a new regionalism. I am very happy that through Our Daily I have been able to see these phenomena, to see what young architects are doing in Indonesia with bamboo, what young architects are doing with brick in Iran or in Paraguay. Things that are very root to their conditions, root to contexts where maybe there are many restrictions, and that leads to innovation, because to innovate is to do more with less. So that is why, not just about the typologies, like this new kind of regionalism, for me, it is incredible. And I'm very happy that through the network that we have established through Our Daily, we can receive this. We are connected with very, very, very diverse countries. And I think that is the benefit of being in Chile. Again, we're in the corner of the world and we see everything. It's not like when you are maybe in the context of the US or Europe, where the world becomes US, where your world becomes Europe. For us, the world is really the world.
Yeah, it's the other question you explained the public space. Another question about permanent and temporary architecture. The young architects love to see and work on the temporary architecture, like a pavilion and a public space, and some, the also the you explained in the bamboo also brings the different alternatives that kind of to architecture, and also you sometimes you post and publish that kind of the temporary things. Maybe it's the Eiffel Tower is also was the temporary design, architecture, and engineering. We see the many young architects really interested in the temporary design and architecture because it's easy to make it, and easy to design, especially working with computer aided and digital fabrication, and creating the small houses and that kind of the developing habitats and that kind of things. Also the help to the homeless people, that kind of the solutions. Always we try to encourage our young architects, and also maybe you can suggest some way, because ArchDaily combine the people from the different country and a different world and different school. Under the circumstances, which school, which education system anywhere in the world interested and take your attention?
Well, in that aspect, and in this evolution, as you say, for young architects now, there are much more possibilities and enabled through technology, and to have the chance to practice earlier. Again, for me, in this movement through the world, I started to see this kind of things because, to start, in Chile, you can graduate from architecture school at 23 years old and you can be building. You don't require certain qualifications, such as in the US or the UK, where the system is very regulated. Here in Chile, I have met amazing architects doing things even before graduating, because the means of production are very democratic. Before, you require an office with draftsmen, clients. Now people can find their fund and create their own project for a little community using existing tools, constructed technology in a very easy way. And this is why so many young architects are influencing the world today. But in regards to education, this is also permeating. And I see a very interesting rise of what we call design build. Design build is that in studio you no longer do theoretical projects. You have to build them. They will be in a small scale. Of course, you are going to learn different things. It's not just to be drawing and designing residential projects or museums in the context of a studio or urban scale projects. But the design build methodology gives you many, many tools to understand things in a different way. It's a very hands-on approach. And I see this as a growing trend in architecture schools, and also brings a very intense debate. I remember being a few years ago at a architecture deans conference in the AEDES Forum in Berlin, where this was a very strong discussion. Like, for some schools, we need to give future architects tools. We can no longer have them thinking about clouds. And the others, the more theoretical ones, were, you cannot restrain their thinking. The small building drags you down. It doesn't allow you to take your imagination further. Two valid points that were clashing, again, because there was change. And I think that design building is the most important. For me, two very motivating schools in this aspect are the rural studio in US, in Alabama, in which students are building, and they build for communities. And also 2 schools in Chile, the Católica from Valparaíso and the University of Talca, which in different ways have embraced the design building. In the University of Talca, students need to build their graduation project to become architects. You also have the choice that you can choose not to do, just to do a regular project, not to build it. But 99% take the other, because that is the biggest tool that you can come up after graduation. And I see many of these young architects who, through their graduation build project, get featured in academic conferences, are invited to biennials, their work gets published, and they are exposed to many opportunities with having one build project as the result of their education. So these kind of things for me are incredible. On the other spectrum, there is also another school that I really like, which is Strelka in Russia, in Moscow, because they call themselves a media and city school. And I think this kind of relevant discussions about media, about cities, and how do they tackle that? They are entering a lot into decision making for the city, into enabling decision makers to have the proper tools to understand architecture. And that is also a school that, for me, in the today's scenario, is very interesting approach to education.
Next question. Again, the young architects asking, the architects use software program, was already ready software program. If you realize any new software program like a Katya created by architects also helps them in the building information modeling, let's call it that kind of things, but more than that, to creating their own software programming. Do you know that kind of the new any software?
I think that here something very interesting that is appearing is the concept of real-time rendering. In the past, well, when you were designing something, wanted to present to the client or the competition, you create the model, you send it to a 3D expert who will do a highly realistic or highly expressive visualization. It could take weeks, a lot of time, back and forth. And today we're seeing that inside the studios, real-time rendering is growing. Sounds very technical, but where is it coming from? It's coming from these blurry boundaries between gaming and visualization into architecture. Gaming has developed very powerful engines. All these first-person games that we see that are taking hours of the day for many young people living in very realistic environments, they require engines that will produce these things in real time. And architects are entering into this field because it is to create environments, and we are those professionals. And back from this cross-pollination, this technology is being able to be used in our field. All these kind of virtual simulations that we see in the real estate industry come from this. And I see in a very interesting crossover how these things are entering into the architecture studio, but from the point of view of efficiency. We visit architecture studios, big firms, and during last year I was into one of the top 5 US offices, very traditional one, and they were being forced to evolve because business was not in the same way as before. Now it was much more competitive. Now they were no longer the only ones doing skyscrapers in China. They are not the only ones doing the corporate offices for the tech companies. It was much more competitive. And if it gets competitive, you need to be more efficient. What did I saw in that office? They were showing me, David, we no longer have to do presentations with Adobe InDesign, creating these books, doing all this kind of production. We must do everything on Google Slides. When we're designing, building surfaces, we do it directly on Google Sheets, on Excel, on spreadsheets, because then we just plug this information into the model. Now, when we're doing presentations, we no longer hire a visualization studio to do these renders that will take weeks, corrections and so on. We use real-time rendering tools. And this allows us to be more efficient, to reduce the time that takes us to deliver one building, so we can do much more buildings in the same time, much more revenue, become much more competitive, offer lower prices to our clients. So it's a very interesting logic on how to understand even the big ones, who you think are the ones who are slow to adapt, are understanding that the need for change is critical, because the young generation, with the same tools that are embodying themselves, they were born with these tools, they are going to be much more competitive.
Let's take the next questions. It's interesting that you don't describe ArchDaily as a media. Is it because becoming a mainstream media starts to steer or guide, manipulate its environment? Do you see that as a danger for the great tones that you have mentioned at the beginning of your presentation?
Yeah, because when I talk about these dangers of this pendulum between flattening globalization and the importance of the uniqueness of the regionalism, ArchDaily is the main enabler of this flattening, because we are producing a stream for all over the world to see the whole world. And we are active parts of what we call the danger. So for us, it's very important to acknowledge it. And also because it generates this effect of the mainstream. We do a very hard work to find interesting things that have not seen the light because of the usual networks of distribution, media, biennales, exhibitions. We do this hard work. But when it's on ArchDaily, it becomes mainstream. And for every counterculture, there has to be a counterculture. So, for every strong cultural movement or cultural thing, there has to be a counterculture. And that is why for us it's very important to see a variety of different media. Because we understand that there have to be many ArchDailies, because there shouldn't be one dominating view. Of course, we work in the one that we believe with a lot of passion. We're very obtuse sometimes, but for this great shades to exist, it has to be that way. We have to understand, always seeing what we do as a sword of double edges.
David, the next question on WhatsApp. Some questions not WhatsApp, some question on YouTube, because we use a different kind of the media way. And
WhatsApp, how relevant it is in our communication, unlike in other parts of the world.
Yeah, and the question is, what are the ArchDaily planning the next year and then next couple of years? What is the projects? Because I think that you have a different projects. Maybe I am told you are planning to organizing a new architecture school.
I wish. For us, education is very important, and we have tried to address this question.
The question is supposed to be in the middle of the Pacific or Atlantic Ocean.
In the cloud, for us, when we saw
a new island, the no man's land, no island in the middle of the ocean, right?
In this in a meta place.
Because many people invites you to opening the school as an ArchDaily architecture school from the different countries. I know that. I am told.
Yes, but it has been important to understand, because I can tell you as an evolution of the thing that in a way we have failed, because a few years ago we understood the future of education is highly important, because education, traditional education, is collapsing. We try to, as our society evolved, we wanted to to broadcast education. We had to educate masses. And we can look at it in a positive way. Think that centuries ago, most part of the world was uneducated. So we had to develop a kind of education that could be massive, broadcast. One teacher, 60 students, everybody being fed with the same. If you learn, good for you. If you were not learning, maybe because you were you just couldn't process it, or maybe because you were highly brilliant and this was boring, you were out of the system. The system, this mass education system, was for the average. But then came the internet and the possibility to have one-to-one transmit of knowledge, of education. And we saw that many people started to learn on themselves. Our early platform, I had to learn how to program on my own. I studied architecture, but I just went into Google and I really wanted to do this. So I learned out of my motivation. I really like a video about Isaac Asimov in the 70s talking that in the future, everybody will have a terminal connect to the big libraries. And learning will be driven by your motivation. You like baseball, you're going to learn mathematics because of statistics, because you like baseball. And it's not going to be forced on you. And this is the world that we're seeing today, and universities, especially the ones who were very oriented towards profit, are collapsing. And this has also made that many professions have become unsustainable. I think that even this was a crisis for architecture education. And in this new context, there is, of course, a very big opportunity online. And many years ago, we saw the rise of online education. We have many friends who are very successful in this space, and we try to do some ArchDaily courses. We had an internal project called ArchDaily Academy. But very fast, we started to also understand we were trying to adapt the same educational model to just do it online. So no, it's not going to work. And today, we even understood that ArchDaily, okay, is being used by many architects. But more important to us today is to understand the non-architects who are using it. And I think that that is where our next opportunity is. We still don't have it clear. It is part of this, this understanding that I showed before, when so many people are interested in architecture. At the beginning for us, it was our audience is 70% architects. And I said, this other 30%, I hope they didn't exist. It will be 100% architects. But now I understand that our future doesn't have to do with architects or not architects. It is about architecture. And we can start to disconnect or separate. Architecture is not just for architects. It's for many, many other people. And how can we help them understand architecture? This is our future direction. But also in a concrete level. A month ago, 5 weeks ago, we announced that we're merging with Architonic, the biggest catalog for products, for architectural products online. And we're taking this because we understand that for architects, the world of building is highly important, and we really need to connect it with the inspiration. So our future is going to be on how do we provide much more tools to the people who need architecture, who are not just going to be architects.
Next question on YouTube live. ArchDaily is a milestone in architecture history. Wow. First of all, thanks for inspiring, sharing, and gathering all good quality projects info in a platform like ArchDaily. We call that the ArchDaily, right? It's okay, right? ArchDaily, ArchDaily. Some people
Well,
called
it varies, but comes from architecture, so it should be ArchDaily.
ArchDaily. It's
But
really
doesn't
helped
matter.
and yeah, it's really helped and inspired all architects around the world. How is this story of ArchDaily started? How was the project search and validation of works in the beginning? The flashback.
Yeah, I want to really share this story because I think that for young people, it's good to understand where did this came from. For some reason, I like technology. I was studying architecture, and David Basulto, my partner, he was in the same school. And one day, we haven't met before, and he came to me and he said, "Hey, David, I know you are into technology, you like the internet, and I think that information will radically improve the way that we live in the future." It was a very abstract thinking. And he was working on something called Plataforma Urbana, urban platform. He told me about this. I told him, maybe you can do it this way. Let me show you. And I sit down on my computer to exchange ideas with him. And since that day, we started to work together. We start with something called architectural platform in Spanish, Plataforma Arquitectura, the first website, understanding that architects with better knowledge could do better things. Probably, Gokhan, you have a big architecture library in your office. You have accumulated books, magazines, knowledge for years, and it's highly valuable. But not everybody can have the same. And when I was an architecture student, I lived in the library. I was very happy when new books will arrive, when the new domus will arrive. And I would look at the domus and, oh, but this is from 1 year ago, because to move magazines, books, atoms, it was very expensive. And to send it from Italy to Chile, cost, time. But the internet was about to change all of this: distribution, centrality, being free access. So we apply all of this to Plataforma Arquitectura, architectural platform, and we started to publish projects from the architects that we knew. Young architects in Chile who just graduated the last year, who were already building, our professors. And we were doing this in the university with my partner, working just before our graduation in the nights, on the Saturdays. And I still remember when we were doing this, and it was working, people were using it. And one Saturday afternoon, we were with David in the university, and we said, this architect in Finland, Sami Rintala, wow, is doing interesting things. Let's send him an email to publish his work in our website. We sent an email to Sami, and 2 hours after, he had answered. And he shared with us his projects, what he was thinking. And that was our first global connection. For us, it was very meaningful because we sent an email to somebody on the other side of the world, asking him for knowledge and saying, we are going to spread what you're doing to others. And he immediately connect with this. And for us, was very, very symbolic. And since that day, we started to connect architects, to contact them, to ask them about their work, and to do a curation. It's very important to understand that in ArchDaily, everything is curated. We have a global team of curators who are taking decisions. Maria is our project's leader, and she, together with Paula, with Mateus, with Clara, and with the rest of the team, are scouting for architecture. They are receiving projects. They decide, is this project of value? Can it teach something to any architect? And despite the fact it could be ugly by some comments, maybe some people could think it's not relevant, but if it can help one architect to understand something, it is a valuable project for our stream, and we should publish it. And our team is constantly taking this decision 100 times per day. And that is what makes ArchDaily live and be so diverse.
Yeah, you're correct. Actually, the last 100 years, architecture history, more than other countries, more Eurocentric explanation and approaching the architecture side. But ArchDaily, already changed that rules. Because you're from Latin America, also you consider all global world. But some architecture websites and also the magazines only concentrate their country. And you always appreciate you grew up in Chile, Latin America, but not only the Latin America, also all global world. What you and your team is focusing on all issues from the global world. We have a next question. We appreciate your approaching, especially. I would like to ask a question. Thanks for the great interview. My question is that what's the position of ArchDaily as a new media website for the mass communication using technologies such as Instagram, Pinterest, and other Twitter and other accounts?
Yeah, well, I mentioned a bit earlier, but for us, all these new technologies, at the end, we have to understand them as networks. Pinterest is a place of inspiration. Instagram is a place where you show what you are thinking through the photos that you share. It's like you're unconscious. Twitter is a place where people are debating. Well, debating is a soft word because Twitter is very crazy in regards to discussions. So we need to understand how we're going to approach them. We believe that in regards to how we want to be a tool for inspiration, Instagram has always been our natural network. But all the time, a new network appears and we need to understand it. Is it going to be used for architects some way or another? Snapchat, it didn't work. TikTok, I don't think it is related to what we're looking. Or maybe I am just too old and I'm not understanding, and it will be some young architect who really understands it that is going to create the next ArchDaily on Instagram or the next mobile app. This is, we understand it, that if we do not understand things, we're not receptive, and we're not moving fast, somebody else is going to do it. In the same way that many years ago, there were many ArchDaily clones in China. And for us, this was very crazy because we have the Western mentality of copyright, protecting what we had created. But at the end, it was because we didn't understood the world. China was the biggest growing economy. Architecture was growing like crazy, and they really need digital archives like ArchDaily, but ArchDaily was not in Chinese. So many people saw the opportunity and started to translate ArchDaily in Chinese. It was not about stealing or about copyright. It was about a necessity. And if we were not going to be providing that solution, somebody else will see the opportunity and do them themselves. And many people were doing it very, very good, and that motivated us to enter into China. And it was in that year when we did that and we understood it, when we understood globalization and that the Western image of globalization was not going to be the dominant one. It was much more related to the Eastern view of the world. And we were very quickly to open and to change our shift, because here in Chile, mentally, you are very driven by the US history. US was very dominant into the American, South American politics, and they influenced it. So when we started to see a different world, for us was like very refreshing, because it was not what we were used to be told. And then I think was a new era of ArchDaily in regards to this globalization that we're part of.
Question on YouTube. Thank you. Link to Emre Bilow's question. The new generation is getting used to 144 characters text and consuming the images in 2 seconds. What is the role of media in age? I think the architect needs more time because they like to create a design and build with some materials and also words. I think the new because I know the modern architects always explain we are silent, are building talks instead us, and also they say that they always follow the silent architecture. They talk about the creation about silence, and today architects more interesting in explain their architecture with let's say some new created words, and
Well,
yeah, full of this.
yeah, I know. In this, I think it's rather to address the question about speed, because also architecture can be done faster than before. Before it will take processes that will take many time. Today are much faster thanks to certain fabrications. So in a way, architecture can advance faster because at least I see architecture as a series of iterations. You create one building and you learn something, and others learn something. They extract from it, create a new building, inspired or learning by the other, and it's this speed. So I'm very happy to see how this speed will enable architecture to advance faster, but we also need to be critical, because in the same way that a discourse can now be reduced to 144 characters, or an image-driven society is something dangerous, the same rules apply to the new fast speed that architecture can have. Just because we can, it doesn't mean that we should.
We got the many questions, David. I have also seen ArchDaily as a platform that always inspires and offers us something beautiful. The young architects inspires from you. My curiosity is, could you tell us about your new ideas and the future plans that are groundbreaking?
Well, if I tell you about me, for me it's all about today, about organizations, because ArchDaily, even if I'm an architect, I'm looking at architecture, big part of my job is to lead people into this common vision of how do we achieve what we want. So the new way of doing companies is what is my biggest curiosity. How can we maintain the motivation? How we can provide the framework for us to do our work in a global way? How we can stay relevant? How we can innovate? But if I want to give you perhaps a framework for your question, I will say that it is, my views have always been into countries where there are, or contexts where there is less. Because when you have restrictions, when you don't have resources, that creates innovation. And I think that all these new waves of inspiring architecture coming not from the Northern Hemisphere is full of innovation, is full of fresh ideas, and it is coming from that. When you have few tools, or you are given a very limited set of things, is where creativity appears. So I will recommend that you will look into places where these things are happening, maybe even travel to see them. And I'm very happy to, also to say from this perspective, that is why for me Turkey has been very inspiring. And we have featured many Turkish architects because they are part of this. I think that it is a country that during the recent growth has required architects to step up. And I still remember the first architects that we will publish from Turkey when ArchDaily started. We did an interview with Superpool, which is a research-driven office, and was the first glimpse that we had into this early in the age of ArchDaily, and we learned a lot. I remember your fish market also, one of the very first projects that we were seeing when we were starting with ArchDaily. And I think that the Turkish context for us it is inspiring in this aspect, because you had to deal with years of such rich history that clash in between the need to produce a new image, a new architecture, ideas of future. So those contexts where you have such intensity are highly inspiring.
Thank you, David. The next question about if you design and build a new house for your family, do you use a 3D printing or conventional way?
A very good question, because, well, for one side, I know that I will always live in not in a house, but in a building, because I really like dense urban areas. And I understand that eventually the efficiencies of construction, this is going to be the first place where it will happen. But also I want to answer this question from the fact that we are remodeling our daily office. Our office is in a 70s house, modern house, very transparent, and now we remodeled it. We went through a big process in which we had to hire an architect because we needed someone with the craft of building. For us, that was important. We came with a lot of ideas, how we wanted to do all these flexible spaces to promote our internal culture, to promote how we work, but the craft is something that we don't have. And so we asked for help. And actually we asked for an architect that we saw from our area who had built many interesting, flexible working spaces. And it was a very good process because we were able to also bring these ideas of the things that we care about and have to enter into the process of architecture. We built with my partner at the beginning when we needed to have income. It was a good experience, but we are not trained on it. So now to have the possibility to remodel our office was very good. And how did we incorporate, in a way, technology, which we did mostly in the term of how we will relate it to our well-being every day. So the bathrooms, for example, on a technical aspect, were very important to us on how we will incorporate natural light into every space. Very basic things, but then thanks to certain technical advances could be done in a good way. Have very large thermo panel windows with small frames, which is a technological advance. Or how could we do bathrooms that were very hygienic through design and by using certain things such as Dyson appliances that do not require paper, so we could be less waste. Things, small details like that can be embodied into a design that is not, where your hand is not forced by the technology.
Thank you. And next question, young architects want to join your ArchDaily. What is your qualification? How can they join your join your platform as a volunteer? Or
yeah, well, we always have we have many open processes, and we're actually looking for a managing editor for our daily for our new office in Berlin. So if anybody lives in Berlin or wants to live in Berlin and have the qualifications, archdaily.com/jobs. And there we have many of our open positions for Mexico, for US. But also, every semester, we have an internship program. And it's very important for us. Why? Many of the area managers of our daily enter our daily as interns, and they did their whole career. And they are now on managing positions, managing big teams, because for us it's very important to have always fresh views. Each semester there will be more than around 500 applications. So it's a process because we really go through all these applicants. Create this as an entry system for our daily. This balance of these internships that are open every semester and the open positions on archdaily.com/jobs. And always through our contact form, we're open to many people who want to contribute with something in particular from their area of expertise, and we're always open to hear and to engage. Our contact form is where I spend most part of my day.
And also, our foundation also invites the interns from everywhere. Also, we would like to expect also your ArchDaily interns in Istanbul also. The next question about the. Do you want to add anything or?
No, I think that these questions have been.
What is your suggesting to the new architects, new students?
Well, at the end, I just wanted to share our story because it started like that. Architecture students who didn't have much networks. It's not that somebody will come to ask me to design a building or something to start my career. And with my partner, we had a very entrepreneurial approach. We were doing always work on ourselves, fixing computers, creating websites, doing something, always to get moving. And that is eventually what drove us to do this. So at the end, the best advice I could give is do not wait for something to ask you to do something. You can find endless ways to create on your own, and eventually those will be driven by your passion, and you will find a way to make it into something viable, because we all want to live in that way. So if you are able to kickstart that, you're going to do good in life.
We have a last question, and I think ArchDaily is very inspiring for architects, but we talk about the posts that will inspire all people. So do you have something in your posts that you pay particular attention?
Yeah, well, for us, I think that in this aspect, it is very diverse, because at the end, we need to address what is happening in the world. We try to bring that in our content. But now we're putting focus into these kind of things in regards to the future for architects, especially to understand that we are thought in a way that provides us with many tools. We have abstract thinking, problem solving, teamwork, what we call design thinking. And these tools, these skills, are highly valued in the world today. The world's most valuable company, Apple, is a design company. And many architects are working there, not doing buildings, but doing product design, product management. So the tools that we are acquiring today as architects, I think that enable us to do things that before you will say this is not architecture, but it is. So I think that the profession of architect is becoming highly valuable in the creative world of today. So these are the kind of things that we're trying to bring to light, and it is hard for us because we are very building oriented, but we understand that this is the future, and even that our daily could be, let's say, a ground for training into architectural thinking, but that it can be applied to different things that the world really, really needs. So to understand about interfaces, about product, about creative management as a derivative from architecture is something that we're going to advocate and try to share with the students, with the architects who are using ArchDaily, because I think that architecture can now serve a very wider role.
You join us the answering all critics and questions. Thank you very much. We would like to connect always ArchDaily every day, ArchDaily for us. Again, thank you very much for all our architects and young students, young architects, also non-architects and designers and non-designers, all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate.
Thank you. And we discussed many times to have this kind of conversation that hopefully will happen in Istanbul.
Sure.
But because of this situation, I think that now we'll have to say that the next time when we meet in Istanbul, it will be me interviewing you.
Absolutely. We are planning to Istanbul Architecture Biennale in a couple of years. We follow because you mentioned the many organization and Biennale postponed. We follow after them, maybe 2022. We are working on that. We need your ideas and we need to discuss about that. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Say hi to your
Thank you.
family and your team.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Bye-bye.